sanctions amount to an all-out trade war against Russia. President Trump signing the sanctions bill today, even as he called it deeply flawed. If it were a trade war, Moscow should be very concerned indeed. The United States is Russia's 5th largest trade partner. Russia is only the 30th largest trade partner for the United States. The Prime Minister had better hope that he's wrong. Joining us tonight to discuss the signing of the sanctions bill, North Korean provocations, and much more, retired 4-star General Jack Keane, Fox News military analyst. Great to have you with us, General. Medvedev choosing a very, it seems to me, a peculiar way to express concern about the sanctions, calling it a trade war. It is nothing of the sort, at least for the United States.
No, it's not at all. I mean, clearly, what the Trump administration has done indeed is change the relationship between the United States and Russia from one of essentially accommodation, is what Obama was doing with them as they annexed Crimea, moved into Ukraine, military intervention into Syria, bombing the Syrian moderates, and we did nothing about it. So this is really a policy of confrontation based on very good evidence in terms of what Russia is clearly up to, obviously to include Iran and North Korea as well.
Yeah, and as we look at all that is going on with North Korea and their obvious intent to continue testing ICBMs, testing further nuclear weapons, this has to end somewhere, and it right now doesn't look like it's going to end well, particularly for the North Koreans.
Well, clearly, North Korea has made the calculation that they have to have nuclear-tipped ICBMs, or intercontinental ballistic missiles, to put the American people at risk to deter the United States from ever conducting a regime change in North Korea. That's a departure from the past, where it was always understood that having weapons pointed at South Korea would be enough deterrent. So this is their calculation. The other calculation they make, I think, is interesting also, is they're saying that any preemptive attack or any military action taken by the United States against any capability that North Korea has is an act of war, and they would release all the rockets and missiles and capability they have on South Korea. They believe that by having that policy, that checkmates the United States, and the United States will essentially accept nuclear-tipped ICBMs. The problem with that calculation is they're dealing with a Trump administration that is totally different than their predecessors, and they may indeed be making a miscalculation here.
At some point, the calculus has to become public. We go back to 1957 in the era of mutual assured destruction. Now it becomes, it seems to me at least, incumbent upon us to say this is precisely what will happen. Draw a line, if you will, a red line. But there has to be some way to stop that, because obviously it's unacceptable to put any U.S. citizen in harm's way when it comes to Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that assessment, and that's likely to happen. The Trump administration, despite the rhetoric, is still going to work with China. They're going to put sanctions on China considerably more than what they've done in the past. I think the president's pretty close to making a decision on this, and they're going to continue to increase that pressure and that leverage. And obviously they have to put it on fast forward now, because literally the clock is running out, as we've had these frustrating leaks out of the intelligence service, and how close North Korea is to a nuclear-tipped ICBM.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're having these leaks, and yet the policy that has been followed to this point by the Obama administration in particular, in the first 6 months of this administration, the idea that these people can get this ready in the next year, that is an ICBM capable of delivering a North Korean warhead to a U.S. target, is deeply troubling, because everything the American people have been told until just a couple of months ago was that it was far more, a far broader and longer horizon.
Yeah, several years in most cases, and some others, you know, 2 to 3 years. And now we're told sometime next year, if we accept the credibility of what the media is saying based on a leaking source. So I tell you the truth, I can't shed any light on that, because I don't talk classified information with anybody in the government, and I think that's the way it should be.
Peter, what's good for America, it's do it our way or take the highway. You know, and the world is much more multifaceted than just the view out of the Beltway. There's needs, desires, and a perception of the future that Europeans have that differ from that of America.
Now, I've heard some people saying that, some of these sanctions are actually technically internationally illegal, using sanctions as a political tool to further the U.S. energy industry. Is that accurate?
That has been said, yeah. If one takes a look at the WTO and some of the principles that are embodied in the World Trade Organization, what we've seen since 2014 is really counter to the spirit of free trade, which I don't think we've ever really seen.
Now, when it comes to European investments, for example, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is supposed to be pumping Russian gas into Europe within the next year or two. Austria, Italy, France, some of these countries have invested billions into the Nord Stream 2, and now we understand that America, in effect, is saying, don't buy Russian gas, you have to buy American LPG gas. Is that right?
That's one interpretation. The other, again, is the perception of the Ukraine situation. But if you look historically, all the times the valves have been turned on and off, it's been by Ukraine, and it's essentially been holding Europe hostage for higher rates for throughput of gas. So directly from Russia to a Germany or to Europe makes much more sense because it's business, it's not politics.
Who do these sanctions hurt the most? Are they going to affect Russia, Iran, China, or even Trump himself?
All of the above.
All of the above?
And more. We have left the era of even trying to trust. There's a demonization out there, intolerance.
But what about Trump in office? Some people are saying that Trump is under attack from all sides as he stays there up in the White House. Is this how it's going to be for the next 3 years, at least?
I hope not, but I think that's what the case is. Look, he was voted in to be someone different. Not to be a Republican, a Democrat, to be an American, to safeguard American interests, not necessarily our interests in the Persian Gulf or in Iceland or whatever, in the USA. Well, his hands have been tied.
Now, Trump was claiming throughout his campaign that he would be the deal maker, he would be the one calling the shots from the White House, yet it seems that perhaps Congress has other ideas. Do you think it's going to be a frustrating time for the new American president?
Yeah, and if you look back during the Obama administration, it's a very similar situation. It's a frozen government. And that, as an American, I find that to be incredibly sad. It's a tragic state of affairs.
Now, with these anti-Russia sanctions and pointing at other countries as well, Iran and China and so on, there's a lot of talk about energy here, using sanctions as a tool to achieve certain energy purposes here. And before you and I came into the studio, we had a quick mention about the petrodollar. And you said to me that the petrodollar is on its way out.
Well, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but now there are deals between China and suppliers in the Persian Gulf, where the yuan or renminbi is being used, where Russia is accepting rubles for payment of crude that's exported or gas. So yeah, the times when Nixon went to Saudi Arabia and agreed with OPEC that this is going to be dollar traded. In exchange for what? An umbrella of defense for that part of the world. Why? To safeguard American oil import interests.
Thank you very much.
The world is changing. We're no longer entirely dependent on oil in the Middle East. We've got shale oil in the States. America's a net exporter now. Things change.
Things change, and some people say always follow the money. If you study geoeconomics and geopolitics, you know there's always money somewhere back there in the region.
Even her...